The first unit of the course will examine the post-Civil War period of Reconstruction. You'll examine the different plans created to incorporate the South back into the nation. Through critical analysis of letters and law codes, you will learn how ideas and expectations of freedom and rights varied between people and were expressed in federal and state laws. You'll also expand your analysis of the ideas of freedom and equality to examine how those debates influenced women and American Indians in the late 19th century. You will examine the process of homesteading as it drew settlers west after 1862. Finally, you will examine how the expanding agricultural growth on the Great Plains and rising industrialization in the North impacted politics and working conditions in the last decades of the century. Starting with Abraham Lincoln's 10% plan in 1863, the federal government searched for a way to bring the former Confederate states back into the Union. Andrew Johnson's Reconstruction Plan allowed the Southern aristocracy to maintain political and economic dominance through laws like the Black Codes. Starting in 1866, congressional Republicans instituted their own Reconstruction Plan, which worked to establish biracial state governments that could protect the rights established by the 14th and 15th Amendments. Efforts to create lasting changes, however, failed in the face of growing racial violence, and Reconstruction ended with the Compromise of 1877. Meanwhile, women began applying arguments made in support of the 14th and 15th Amendments to their own circumstances as the women's rights movement revived. As Reconstruction focused in the American South, the North experienced a period of rapid industrialization. Most of the unskilled factory labor was done by immigrants arriving primarily from Ireland and Southern and Eastern Europe. The working poor faced increasingly poor living and working conditions, leading to the growth of the labor unions and strikes. Meanwhile, the wealthy elite flourished during the Gilded Age. The growing gap between wealthy and poor led to new political movements like the Populists and the Socialist Party of America. Many Americans and immigrants sought to escape the pressures of urban life and violent response to Reconstruction by moving west. In the 1860s, Congress passed the Homestead and Pacific Railroad Acts to ease and encourage the spread of Western movement. The influx of new settlers, however, had a devastating effect on Native Americans, as land and resources were monopolized, and the federal government established a reservation policy to restrict and assimilate Native peoples. By the closing decade of the century, the United States experienced economic prosperity and a growing middle class. The end of Reconstruction had allowed the establishment of elite white authority and development of Jim Crow segregation, and the development of new technology transformed everyday life.